If We Were Giants, Chapter 13. When she arrived back home, panting for breath after climbing 200 feet, Loba and Maham were already there. They had gotten the fire going again, and the house smelled like fresh stew. Her stomach rumbled. "Hello there," said Maham, stirring the bubbling pot. She offered Kira a smile. "I'm glad to see you are home safe." "Thank you. I'm sorry to be late." Kira took the pouch off her back. "Where have you been?" asked Loba. He was hanging his hunting cloak, molted with green and browns to blend in with the forest, in a hook near the fire. It was damp, so perhaps he'd been stalking prey in one of the swamps. Kara allowed herself to hope that maybe there'd be a night of crocodile steaks this week. That had become one of her favorite meals since coming to this place. "I had to go get salt. We're running low." "Oh, that's good. I didn't want to say anything." Maham smiled at her as she held up the ladle, but this dish could definitely use it. "Did you have any trouble getting to the caverns?" Loba asked. "I haven't been over that way since the fire." "Oh, I ended up not having to go out there. I saw a Momi, and he said we could have some of his." Loba stroked his beard as he studied her. Most adult men in the tree folk community grew them long. Kira had always thought they looked like the stringy moss that hung off trees by the swamp. Maybe he should dye his beard green to enhance his camouflage, she thought. Normally, he would have to say that out loud, but the look on Loba's face made it clear he was not in a joking mood. "Why did you go to his house and not the caverns?" Kira shrugged, trying to make it seem casual. "I just ran into him and told him where I was headed, and he offered to let us use the supply." She purposely left out the part about being caught up in the leopard trap. Loba did not need another reason to wonder about Momi. Besides, Loba had a way of making Kira feel guilty, even when she hadn't done anything wrong. Were all fathers like that? Or just adoptive ones who maybe weren't that crazy about the fact that never met you in the first place? "How much did he give you?" Kira held up the pouch by the strings and gently shook it so he could guess how much was inside. Then she handed the pouch to Maham, who, clearly grateful to have something to do during this conversation. She immediately opened it and started seasoning the stew. Loba remained quiet. Kira looked back and forth between them. "Did I do something I wasn't supposed to?" Loba sighed heavily. He raked fingers through his damp hair to dry it out. Then he pulled his long locks back and tied them with a leather strap. "Look, I'm not saying you necessarily did anything wrong, Kira. It's just that we don't truly know Momi. He's not part of this family. What will he want in return?" "Nothing." Loba gave her a look. "Nothing really. I mean, the next time I'm at the salt caverns, I'll fill an extra pouch and bring it to his house to repay him for the kindness. But he wasn't trying to get anything else." Loba stroked his beard some more. "Did he try to fill your head with more of his stories? He's not from here, you know." Kira looked at the wooden floor with eyes that had threatened to burn with tears again. "I'm not from here either," she said quietly. "Oh, honey," said Maham, "that's not what he meant. Loba was merely trying. He's not like you, Kira. When Momi came here, he didn't join a family, didn't learn our ways, didn't try to blend in. He's always just kept to himself on the fringe. Isn't that what we're all doing?" Kira didn't dare say. "Isn't this entire community one big fringe?" Loba straightened up, cleared his throat. "I'll need to think about this. I don't know how much I want you talking to him anymore." "Fine." Kira could relate. After their conversation by the lake, she wasn't sure how much more she wanted to keep talking
It's
to Momi
5 o'clock.
either. Maham tried to break the awkward silence. "Well, I'm sorry you couldn't go straight to the caverns. I hope the rainy season gets here soon. It's long overdue. But when it comes, we won't have to worry about any more wildfires. The rainy season might not yet be here, but I am," a voice said. All three of them jumped in surprise. Mayim dropped the ladle and splashing soup on herself. They looked up to see Luan's head poking down through the hole in the roof, dodging this way and that to avoid the smoke rising through it. Kara felt relief wash over her. Luan's antics could be annoying at times, but he had a knack for diffusing tense family situations, and she was glad he had shifted attention away from that uncomfortable exchange. By the gods, son, can't you come through the front door like a normal person? Kira couldn't help noticing that even when Loba spoke gruffly to Luan, there was still more tenderness in his tone than when he was telling her something nice. Luan's face disappeared. Normal is boring, he called, and then they could hear him thumping down the roof until he appeared in the open doorway. He knocked primly on the edge of the door and spread his arms wide. Is this normal enough? He flashed Kira a grin. Loba shook his head. Just get in here and wash up. It's time for dinner. Maham folded the table down from the wall, and they all gathered around it after filling their wooden bowls. The soup is good, Kira, Maham said. Thank you for making it for everyone. Loba, mouth full, grunted his approval. Kira smiled. Thank you, and many thanks for trapping the meat so I could make it. Loba nodded at her. The rest of the meal was eaten largely in silence. This was normal for most of the family, but not Luan. He usually talked so much that Kira was amazed he could actually finish his dinner at the same time, especially since he seemed to eat twice as much as anybody else. She knew what his silence likely meant, though. There was something he wanted from his parents, and he was waiting for the right time to ask. She would have bet any of her possessions on it. She thought the thought made her stomach a little queasy, though. Just as Luan could diffuse any volatile situation, he could also ignite one in record time. Luan picked up his bowl, slurped the last bit of soup, smacked his lips appreciatively, and set the dish back on the table with a clack. Then he stretched his arms over his head, let out a satisfied ah, and looked around the table. So, parents, there's something I want to talk to you about. Maham glanced out of the corner of her eye at Loba, who merely sighed and pushed himself back in his seat. He crossed his arms over his chest and regarded his son with a stoic expression. Kira wasn't the only one who knew how to lead Luan, so I've been thinking. Loba grunted at that. We really should be taking more advantage of this unusually long dry season. Loba and Mahim shared a look. And how do you think we should be doing that? His mother asked. Well, after the rains come, you know how wild the river will get. All that turbulent white water and so deep. Dangerous, some may say. Mahim cleared her throat. Yes, we know this, Luan. It's why the river marks the natural border of our lands, a buffer between us and the tribes that lie beyond. Lobo pointed at his son. It's also the reason you're not allowed to go down there. We give you free rein in the forest and any land that lies to the east, but you are to stay away from there. Kira shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She didn't like this talk about the river. It was the one long, winding, overflowing memory trap. Everyone at the table knew what had happened the last time Luan snuck down there without permission. Luan held up both hands in a placating gesture. I know, and I completely agree with you, but have you seen it lately? It's so low. I bet I could wade right across to the other side. Not a chance. Lobo slowly shook his head. We've talked about this already. The riverbed could be unstable, like quicksand that could suck you right under. There could be holes you can't see beneath the surface, or currents that could sweep you away. No, not going to happen. It wouldn't matter even if it had been 10 years since the last rain. Oh, of course, father, of course. I would never try to walk across. Juan's exaggerated tone made it clear doing that was the furthest thing from his mind. Well then, Maham set her spoon down and pushed the empty bowl away. Why are we talking about this? Okay, please listen before you decide anything, you promise? Loba's expression said it all. Parents did not make blanket promises to their children, especially regarding unknown requests. Luan forged ahead. Right, so you know how my friend Tiha is really good at building things? She's amazing. He looked at his parents, an expectant expression on his face, as if seeking confirmation for this fact. Loba just twirled his finger in the keep going gesture. Well, she hasn't been hanging out with us much the last month because she's been working on some secret project, but she finally showed it to us today, and it's unbelievable. It's this enormous raft big enough to hold all our friends. It's really sturdy, and we were thinking that. Loba pushed himself back from the table and stood up, giving his son a dismissive wave. All he said was a simple no. But father, I need. The discussion is closed. But I'd be doing it for the family. Luan jumped to his feet to plead his case. Think of the fishing spots we could find, places no one has ever been. I could bring home enough to provide dinner for a month or more. He looked to his mother for support, but her head was bowed as she collected the bowls from the table and stacked them up. Lobo retrieved his cloak from the hook, patted it to make sure it was dry, and slipped it on. I need to fix a few loose planks on one of the trees to the northwest. He picked up a lantern and moved toward the door. Father, are you even listening? We wouldn't go far, I promise. I will be back in just 2 days, 3 at the most. Loba stopped in the doorway and turned around. Listen to me well, Luan. We do not go into the river. The forest is vast. It is enough. But think of all the fish I could. Have you ever known a hungry night in your life? Loba's voice was very calm now, quiet and even. Kira found it much more unnerving than when he raised his voice. Luan threw his hands in the air in exasperation. What? Have you ever, even one time, gone to sleep hungry? Luan stared back at his father. Finally, he said, No. Exactly. We have everything we need right here. He turned to walk through the doorway. You will stay away from the river, he said over his shoulder as he walked out of the hut. The silence was heavy after Loba left. Maham busied herself with cleaning the bowls and the cooking pot. Kira patched some clothes that had gotten ripped while she was climbing, and Luan sat quietly with his back against the wall. He went to his hammock early without saying good night to anyone. But later, when Kira climbed down through the trapdoor to get into her sleeping sling, she found Luan awake with his hands behind his head, whistling a jaunty little tune. Kira hung a lantern on the hook between their two hammocks. The two had slept near each other ever since she had arrived. Seems like you're in a good mood, she whispered, especially considering, Kira made a face and gestured to the hut above them to indicate the tense conversation after dinner. Luan stopped whistling and raised one eyebrow at her. Don't tell me you actually believe all that, he whispered. What? Of course. But wait, what do you mean? Father would never let me go out on a raft on that river, not in a million moons. I know, so why did you ask? Luan just and slowly took his head in mock sadness. Oh, Kira, so much to learn about negotiating. What do you mean? Come on, it's a setup, all parts of the game that kids and their parents play. He shifted in his hammock so he was lying on his side facing her. Step 1, I ask them for something impossible. Step 2, they say no. Step 3, I put up a bit of a fight and pretend that it crushes me. Kira raised one eyebrow. So far doesn't seem like the best plan. Luan smirked. But all that leads to step 4, when I ask them for what I really want. And since they feel so bad about saying no today, it increases the chances that they say yes tomorrow. Oh, so what is it you really want? I'll show you tomorrow. Promise. Kira was curious, but she knew better than to ask him any more about it. Luan loved his little surprises, and she would just have to find out when he was ready to tell her. They lay there quietly for a while, listening to the night noises in the forest. A breeze rustled the leaves in a pleasant way. It wasn't strong enough to sway the hammocks. Finally, she said, Did Tiha really build a raft? Yes, and it's amazing. I swear that girl could build anything. She felt a pang of jealousy. She was glad Luan had friends. She didn't expect him to hang around with her at home all day, but sometimes she wished she could do something to make her seem more like than just the poor victim he rescued. Why didn't you tell me about it? He shrugged. I didn't want to worry you, and besides, you don't really like to talk about the river, you know? You never go down there. You heard your father. We're not supposed to. I know, but all the kids do sometimes, except you. In fact, I don't think you have ever been down there at all since I know the last time I was at the river, Luan. Right, sorry. Silence stretched out between them for a bit until Luan cleared his throat. Okay, time to get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be an exciting day. He flopped over on his side. Exciting how? Kira wondered, but Luan was already softly snoring. She marveled with more than a little envy at how untroubled a mind he must have to be able to turn it off that easily.